Okay everyone, this is a quick tutorial to help you with your assignment, your worksheet that we started in class today for the Max Patch. First of all, when you open the Max Patch, Bell-2-20, it will be locked and you'll be in presentation mode. A couple of you had an issue where the screen or the window, the patcher, was a little bit too small, so you didn't see this handy comment I placed over here to allow you to get out of presentation mode. Presentation mode is just there to help you clean things up a little bit. It's the interface you would use if you were performing with a patch and didn't want to have to see all of the details and mechanics of how the patch is working. Over here, I've got the diagram, the Receiver diagram that shows you that this patch is based on, and the goal of the assignment is to understand and interpret the connection between the values that you see in this diagram and the patch that is over here. Oops. Okay, so here we are again. Turn on the sound, and you get sound. Now, if you don't get sound, obviously check your volume, these sorts of things. But it's very important that when you download the patch, you have all of the different elements that are in the folder that I put online together in a folder. If you don't, then you will be missing, your patch will be missing information. So there are a few building blocks in Max that I want to tell you about. The first is the object. These are these square objects, or square items that have lines, outlines on either side, on the top and the bottom. They have inlets and outlets, and they have some sort of, usually they will have some sort of word written in them. Now, not to be confused, this keyboard over here, this knob or dial over here, and this slider over here, these are also objects. They just happen to be objects that have a nice user interface. The second building block in Max are these messages. So you send a message to an object. A message is like if you want to tell your blender, say your object is a blender, you want to tell your blender to stop. You want to tell it how fast to go. You want to tell, say you have 11 blenders and you want to access one of them in particular. You might say, I'm going to target and then send an integer value, say number 2, and then you would say I'm going to target blender number 2, and the next value that I put in here, next message that I send to this object is for the second blender, for example. The last building block in Max is the patch cords. And so patch cords are what we use to connect the outlets of objects to the inlets of other objects and or messages. And they're particularly, they're important. You can think of Max as kind of a gigantic flow chart, and you need to connect your objects and your messages and your objects and your objects, or you will not have any outcome. So the only other thing I wanted to show you was how to get help. Okay, so the most important thing is how to find help. So a couple of things. First, over here in the left corner of any of your Patcher windows is the file browser. Click on this, and then click on tutorials, and click on Max tutorials, and you'll see a whole list of tutorials. These are, you've had homework assignments, readings that you've been supposed to be keeping up with which I neglected to show you how to find in class. And they are here. So they're either the Max tutorials or they're under MSP tutorials. The second thing to note is every time I ask you in the assignment to find out what something does, as long as the patch is unlocked and you unlock it and lock it over here, or with, if you're on a Mac, Command E locks and unlocks the patch. When the patch is unlocked, you can hold your mouse over the left corner of an object and you will get a menu. I will tell you, for instance, what messages you can send to the object. We won't worry about attributes right now, but it can tell you about, it can also give you the help file and the reference file. Now, the help file is going to be an interactive tutorial that you can play around with that shows you kind of what options are available with this particular patch. The reference file will give you a description, an example that you can copy into your own patch, tells you what the arguments are. The other thing that you should know is that a lot of when I was learning Max, what I found the most confusing about it is the extent to which it hides things. So Max hides things. For instance, anytime you see a P followed by a name, this is what's called a subpatch. And if you double click, this only works when the main patch is locked. If you double click, you will see what is the contents of that subpatch. And subpatches can have subpatches over here, and subpatches can have more subpatches. The collect object is also this sort of nested object, which basically opens up a text box that allows you to input values. So it's a handy way to store values, and any collect object in the same patch that has the same name is going to have the same values stored in it. So that's just something to keep in mind. It's a lot to take in, it's a lot to learn, but as soon as you start to get into the habit of looking at the help files, looking at the reference files as you go, you will learn a lot really fast.